All right, we're going to go to our movie review with Rita Cinema. We got an HBO Max box office feature limited release, The Little Things. All right, Rita Cinema, what did you make of The Little Things? Lots of good actors. Was it a good film?
The Little Things is not a good film. Actually, I was super disappointed in this movie. I'd really looked forward to kind of a change of pace from some of the less action-oriented movies we've been reviewing recently, and a change of pace to this crime thriller. So now I want to ask, how do you make a lousy movie with 3 award-winning actors and a story that's been marketed as a taut psychological crime thriller? Well, I think writer and director John Lee Hancock has certainly managed to do that. I thought this movie just fell terribly flat, and I hate to say it, it just frankly reminded me of some of the cliched crime stories on network TV that are on over and over again. I sort of felt like I was watching a TV cop show, and I'm sorry to have to say that, but let me tell a little bit about the story. Joe Deacon, played by Denzel Washington, is a disgraced former LA cop who now works in the sheriff's office of Kern County, California, which is where Bakersfield, California is. And his boss sends him to Los Angeles, much to his chagrin, to collect evidence for a case. Deke, as he's known, lives alone in kind of a beat-up old house out on the outskirts of town, and he's far away from people. So now we're starting some of the cliched stuff that I mentioned. You can tell he's kind of down and out. And as the story goes on, it's revealed that Deke was an LAPD murder detective, a lead detective.
We call it homicide in the business.
Oh, excuse me. That is right. He was a homicide detective, and he lost his marriage. He had a heart attack. He had to leave town because of a particularly brutal case that he couldn't solve. And he's haunted by this case. And we find out once he gets to LA that he's pretty much unwanted by his former colleagues when he shows up there. Basically, Deke is supposed to get this evidence. He's been sent there to pick up evidence for his county sheriff's office. And he's supposed to get that and what he came for and then go back. But as it turns out, they give him a hard time, won't give it to him. And then his boss says, we don't need it after all. But he's there just long enough to get to see everybody again, and he doesn't return home. And instead, he gets drawn back into a case that involves the serial killing of a woman, and similar to what really nearly destroyed him when he worked for the LAPD. And that's the first place where I'm sort of like, yeah, right, sure, they're going to let him just come in and start working with him. And he ends up helping this guy who is now in the same job that he was in, Jim Baxter. And Jim Baxter is played by Rami Malek. And he starts helping him with this serial killer case that's terrifying the city, apparently. And I will say that the opening to this show, I just started telling the plot summary from the point of view of Joe working in with this sheriff's office near Bakersfield. But the movie actually starts with a fairly good, it's, to me, the only scene in the movie that's really kind of edge of your seat, nerve-wracking kind of scene with this woman who's being chased by, what we end up finding out is probably this serial killer. Anyway, and she gets away. But it's the opening of the movie is quite good. But anyway, Jim Baxter, played by Rami Malek, is working on this case. And there are other women who have been killed, by this serial killer. And they're working on that. It's not very long before they discover that this loner named Albert Smarma, played by Jared Leto, is their likely suspect. And the story then really, rather than focusing so much on the murders in the case, becomes more of like a cat and mouse game between these two detectives and this really creepy guy, Sparma. And it's more about their interaction, really, at that point. And this is part of my problem with the movie, too, that I think you don't really know what it's about at some points, including by the time it comes to the end. Anyway, this really creepy guy, Smarma, he's a very disturbing character who appears to kind of get off on playing games with the cops. And you don't really know if that's what he's all about or if he really is a serial killer. So Deke and Baxter form a bond and work together. But by the end of the movie, I'm leaving a lot out here. They do a lot of sitting in their car, trailing this guy. Anyway, but by the end of the movie, Baxter, this young detective who was all get up and go, is starting to turn into kind of what happened to Deke when he was a detective. He's nerve-wracked, he's sick, he's having problems with his family. This whole case is haunting him, and he's mad at this. He knows he's got this Smarma guy, but he can't nail him, and all of this kind of thing. So I'll give spoiler alert here. I am going to tell a little bit here about the ending. Through a series of what I feel are somewhat unbelievable actions that take place in the movie, Baxter goes off alone into the country in a car with Smarma. And after they interact he's digging up, looking for bodies and all this kind of stuff for a while. They're way out in the boonies and where no one can see them or find them out. And I will say, before he got in the car to go off with Smarma, he had been on a stakeout with Deke, and Deke had gone off to a little convenience store to get some coffee and batteries or something like that. And that's when Smarma goes off alone when Deke goes off alone with Smarma. So anyway, what happens though is that Baxter kills Albert Smarma, and not in self-defense. He kills him out of anger. And so basically he's murdered him. So Deke follows them and tracks him down and helps to bury Smarma out there, and then tells Baxter exactly what to do to carry on through this and not get in trouble and nobody find out. And he tells him it's, and I put in quotes, the little things that will get you, and therefore the title of the movie. And so you are to surmise that Baxter has kind of turned into Deke at this point. He's gone a little crazy. And Deke then goes back and proceeds to collect all of Smarma's things out of his apartment, bags them up, burns them back at his place in Kern County. And he sends in the mail a hair barrette that belonged to one of the girls who was killed. He sends that to Baxter to try to make him think that he did get the right man, that Smarma was the killer. Because actually, we really don't know by the end of it whether he was or not. But you also find out when Deke is burning all Smarma's stuff, that he has a new pack of hair barrettes, and he really just sent that barrette to Jim Baxter to make him feel better and make him think he had killed, when he murdered Smarma, that he had gotten away with, he had killed the killer. So that's a little twist at the end. It didn't make the movie any better. At the same time, the movie at the end here, it reveals a lot at the end and just kind of, I don't know, throws things a little off. But at the same time, the movie reveals Deke's memory of this previous case he had been haunted by, where he and the detectives kill one of the female victims. And this was many years ago, and they all helped cover it up. And that's what got him out of town. And, they were never found out. I think the only person who really knew it was the coroner, a woman, a character in the movie. And of course, this is what has haunted Deke. And now, of course, the cover-up will haunt. The cover-up of Smarma's killing will haunt Baxter. So that's the story.
Well, see, I didn't have quite as much of a problem with this film. I didn't like it, but I felt the first, let's go 2/3 of the film actually played out okay. I was a little disappointed we didn't focus too much on the murders, but I understood where they were going. Basically, they were just trying to copy the movie Seven, and
Poorly copied.
well,
Then.
that's what I was going to say. If you're trying to copy Seven, you better be able to do Fincher things and really pull that off. And they didn't quite pull off the Seven thing. But I did like this movie for a nostalgia factor. It goes back to sort of a late 90s, early 2000s. It does take place in the 90s, but late 90s, early 2000s, where they were pretty much churning out these serial killer movies, at least 2 to 3 a year, off of the success of Seven and Silence of the Lambs earlier in the 90s. So movies like Kiss the Girls, Taking Lives, Denzel had been into Bone Collector, Fallen. I mean, there was a long list that they just churned out from about 97 onward.
I think that's why I described it as cliched.
Well, yes.
It's not very new.
But I think the nostalgia comes actually from not necessarily going to the theater and watching this, but going to Blockbuster and renting, your bad little serial killer movie.
We're living in the past.
Well, all I know is we rented Kiss the Girls a lot. So I don't know what that says about me, but anyway, I thought the first 2/3 of this film was okay if they set up the ending correctly. And that's where the movie falls flat, is where the ending is a complete dud. And I don't think they even knew where they wanted to go with the ending, because they sort of red herring so many different things.
Yeah.
And we basically get the worst and dumbest ending possible for any of this.
Well, it works to there's no tension built up because you don't go in any specific direction.
And you mentioned it. We don't even 100% know this man is the actual killer.
Right.
He just could be some random creepy dude, which
I think maybe he was. I don't know.
Might be okay to kill him. I don't know. I'm not judge and jury here, but yeah, he possibly.
Well, no one's ever going to find out. He's buried out in the middle of nowhere.
He possibly didn't kill any of these women. So I think that hurt it. And like I said, if you wanted to go the Seven route, you needed to go the Seven route. And at the end, when, he's mentioning his good-looking family, basically when he's digging up a bunch of holes, he needed to dig up his dead family. And then you hit him with the shovel. And then, Denzel comes in and gets his redemption by saving the cop who murdered somebody off of his mistake when he murdered somebody. So much like Disturbing Young Woman last week, where
Promising Young Woman. She was disturbing.
Yeah, she was disturbed as well. But Promising Young Woman, which is also sort of a nostalgia late 90s film, it hit the ending perfectly. And I think that's where, you go from a movie that is okay to watchable once or twice to a movie that's much better if you hit that ending. And I just didn't think this hit that ending.
Well, when I read my plot summary, it does sound like an intriguing story, but the plot just doesn't unfold well. And to me, there was just no tension build up in the story. And there just seemed to be so many dead ends too. You just kept waiting for some build up, and it doesn't come. I thought actually, you thought it was trying to be like Seven. I thought it was trying to be like True Detective, the TV series. True
Detective. Think that was trying to be like Seven. So
perhaps. And I mean, maybe the first series of True Detective where, which was chilling and tension filled and you couldn't wait for the next episode. And I just didn't feel that way. I mean, this was a movie, but I just didn't feel that way about this movie. It just kept dying kind of in places.
I think that's where it got off track too, is the last half, essentially after the girl is found in the, reservoir, I guess, the runoff, we don't really hear any more about the murders.
I was like, what happened?
Barrette girl from Running, we never even see again. All we see is a 30-second interview of a family and a Barrette. So I think that's where it starts to drop, is where they sort of lose connection and lose what they want. And that's where they don't know how they want to end this film, and it just.
I don't think they know what it's about. Is it about the police officers and what they've done, or is it about the, the serial killings and what they're doing to solve the murders?
Yes,
I don't know.
but that's where I get the Seven vibe. Is they want they want Jared Leto to be Kevin Spacey / Hannibal Lecter, and while if you want your creepy guy to be the method actor, you go and find Jared Leto. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I did not love the performance here, but I mean, he did his job. He was creepy weirdo guy, but I didn't think it pulled like Kevin Spacey did in a Seven and stuff like that. So
yeah, I haven't seen Seven in a long time, but I can tell you it scared the dickens
that's what
out
I mean.
of me.
This film needed to be that dark and that sick.
This didn't even come close.
It doesn't work really if you're making a serial killer film and it's sort of breezy light and you just get a bunch of cops, making poor decisions in their life.
Just as an aside, let me tell you a quick story about how I watched the movie Seven. I didn't really know a lot about it, and I was at some kind of meeting somewhere, and I was staying alone in a room in a hotel, and I decided to watch a movie, and I watched Seven by myself in a hotel, and I tell you, I slept zero that night. That movie scared the dickens out of me, and I couldn't sleep the whole night. I will never forget that. And I have not watched Seven ever again.
As long as you hadn't committed any 7 deadly sins.
Well, I was scared to death.
Or, spoiler alert, been pregnant Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, I have to agree. I just did not think that this was the other thing with the movie. I didn't think the performances that were that good.
I thought Denzel's was okay. I did not love Rami Malek, and I know it's bad to say, but I really haven't loved Rami Malek in a whole lot of things. I thought his turn as Mr. Robot, the TV show, was solid, but other than that, I have not been a huge fan of Rami Malek. And yes,
he was the greatest Freddie Mercury.
Yes, we're
ever.
all going to go Freddie Mercury performance, but I'm pretty sure you could have pulled any British man and put him in that, and it would have been fine. Because guess what? Freddie Mercury's a cool guy, and you dance around in a white tank and sing his songs, and we're all going to love it. So.
Well, let me just say, Washington was convincing in the role, but I thought he was held back by the lack of a good story and by all these tired thematic elements. And, how many times have we seen a story with a broken down cop, and how many times has that broken down cop been played by Denzel Washington? I mean, it just seemed like the same old, same old. And Malik just never shows much emotion and is just uninteresting and unconvincing in this role. I like him as an actor, but he just failed to perform for me in this particular. Perform up to standard. I don't know. I just wanted some emotion, and I didn't. He was supposed to be emoting, but I didn't feel it. And I also thought I just didn't have chemistry between Denzel Washington and Rami Malek. Those two characters, it wasn't Riggs and Murtaugh for sure. It just doesn't come off as great partnership. And I don't know whether it's the two actors or the two characters in the story or both. And Jared Leto, who is definitely now typecast as a creepy weirdo guy. I will say this, at least he wasn't sleepwalking through the movie, which I felt like Malik and Washington were a little bit. But he was a little over the top with all those vacant stares and piercing stares and all that grimy hair. I don't know if that was his fault. So these are 3 good actors, and I'm going to lay the blame on the director. He did not go for the best
I was going to say
performances from these 3.
John Lee
actors.
Hancock, who is the director, is a bit of a mixed bag director. His first real big film was The Rookie, the Disney film with Dennis Quaid. And then he goes to The Alamo, which was a giant bomb, if anybody remembers. And then his actual big film that made him famous, but I think if we watch it in hindsight, maybe The Blind Side. He's the director of The Blind Side.
Okay, now I'm getting it a little bit because I didn't do my research there.
But then we go on a run here, which I think sort of fits, where you see his movies have parts that are good, but are not. He does Saving Mr. Banks, which I thought was
That's a good movie.
Good movie,
Mhm.
but I think it fell a little flat. I did not think
Yeah.
it got quite the performances out of Emma Thompson and Tom Hanks that
Right.
you would have thought. Then you
Right.
got The Founder, the Michael Keaton film where he's the McDonald's.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
which also was a film that had good parts, but also
Yeah.
fell a little flat.
Yeah, but Keaton was good in it.
Yes, but I think much like
Was Keaton, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
I mean, he wasn't he was the guy who bought the McDonald's and turned it into the franchise. And then he did the Netflix movie, which actually I kind of enjoyed, The Highwayman, with Woody Harrelson and
actually, that was a really
Kevin
good movie.
Costner, where they hunt down Bonnie
See,
and
I would
Clyde.
give that one a lot of stars. That was exciting and fun to watch and a good movie.
Might rank in Netflix movies.
This one was a put you to sleep kind of movie and very disappointing.
He seems he can hit high points, but there are plenty of dud films in there. Also, you'll notice there are a lot of Disney films in there. This is his first, The Highwayman is sort of dark, but I mean, it's not dark like this, but this is his first sort of really entrance into dark serial killer type films. The rest are Disney.
But see,
movies.
I didn't think they got to dark in this. They
That's
were
what
trying
I mean.
to.
They were trying to.
He just flat and
didn't know it. It's essentially a Disney serial killer movie.
Oh, please. That can't exist.
The man made The Rookie, and now he's making a serial killer film. The Blind Side meets serial killer.
It's too bad because I really wanted to enjoy this movie. And I don't want to pan it too much because, goodness gracious, to pan a movie that Denzel Washington is in is like, I don't know, you just don't want to be the person who does that. But, and I think, people can probably watch it and enjoy it.
I will say this.
You better go in with low expectations.
I will probably watch it again, but it will be one where I just watch and fall asleep to, because I can fall asleep to these kind of movies. Now I don't do it quite as much with the envision of the Discovery ID channel that just plays Dateline shows of murder mysteries.
Frankly, there are a lot of other Denzel Washington cop movies that I would watch again.
I think
over this one.
I'll just watch those. The Bone Collector and Fallen are both much better.
Yeah.
If you're in the genre of serial killer film, also early Denzel, Ricochet with John Lithgow.
Yeah, just his cop films are all where he's a detective or a cop or a bodyguard or whatever he's doing. He's usually quite good. And it wasn't that he was bad in this. It's just the movie wasn't very good.
Yes, it fell flat, I think. I think it had promise, but it did not reach that promise. All right, so rating-wise, where are you going with this?
Oh, I hate to do this, but I'm giving it a 3. And it only got a 3 because of Denzel. I just can't, go lower than that. Well,
I'm not as bad. I just put it middle of the road, typical serial killer film, and gave it a 5.
Okay.
Nothing special, but I mean, you can watch it. Everybody can watch it. I don't think it's a movie you just turn off because.
Well, I'm glad I didn't pay a lot of money to see it in the theater.
Well, I don't think you and the
and take the risk of getting COVID. While
you and the Librarians Club were going to go attend this film, so I'm not sure that was too much of a worry. All right. So next week we got One Night in Miami and oh God,
The Midnight Sky,
the boring George Clooney movie from Netflix.
Oh boy, wait till you hear.
One Night Sky. They probably should think about changing the title, but anyway, One Night in Miami, One Night Sky,
the Midnight Sky,
the Midnight Sky. We aren't going to get that right. So
The Midnight Sky.
The Midnight Sky, One Night in Miami. Next week, double feature on Know It All. That's our show, and we're out.